Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Casmi 107.1 FM and across the world at 3news.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. This afternoon, the Menchia Palace takes the center stage as Otumfuo-led mediation talks on Boko conflict begin in earnest. We have the very latest. Also coming up, nearly 5 months after 2024 polls, the Electoral Commission is still unable to collate and declare parliamentary election result for Ablekuma North constituency, as the Commission blames the police for failing to provide the needed security for the exercise. We'll hear from the police. And much later in the package, President John Mahama set to launch the government's flagship health financing initiative, Ghana Medical Trust Fund, to support the cost of treatment for chronic diseases. Thank you very much for joining us today. Now, the nation's focus turns to the Menchia Palace as crucial mediation talks aimed at resolving the long-standing Boko conflict commence today. Hosted by the Asantehene Otumfuo Adu II, the 3-day session will address the chieftaincy dispute at the heart of the violent clashes between the Kusasi and Mampushi communities. Key stakeholders from Boko began arriving in Kumasi yesterday ahead of the closed-door negotiations. This mediation follows a recent surge in violence, including the deaths of 2 police officers and a soldier, prompting President John Mahama to seek Otumfuo's intervention. The Asantehene had earlier announced the talks scheduled from April 28 to May 1, 2025, after consultations with the stakeholders. William Evans Income, a Northern Chief Bureau, our Northern Bureau Chief, is monitoring the talks, and he joins us live with the very latest. Evans, good to talk to you this afternoon. Just first of tell us really about the atmosphere at Menchia Palace as factions meet for talks.
Well, so is that of a security field. The auditorium, which is the main auditorium here in Menchia, is ready to receive the parties who are yet to arrive. But I'm getting indication that in the next 10 minutes, they should be here. So all arrangements have been made. I've seen some of the people, or let me put it this way, natives, also here. Both parties have cited some Mamputis, have cited some Kusasi who have come here. But what we also understand is that, like I said, security is going to be very, very tight. No mobile phones or recording device will be allowed inside the auditorium. For the committee, we understand that it's going to be Otumfuo and the parties, so there's no other person apart from other members of the Peace Corps that we understand already. I've seen some diplomats here. Yesterday, for instance, the U.S. ambassador to Ghana was here. I haven't seen her this morning, and so I'm unable to independently say that it's going to be part of today's peace talks. But in terms of security, military, police are here. We are only waiting for the parties. I'm talking about the main parties to arrive.
Indeed, and Evans, if you do know, what should we expect in these talks ahead?
Oh, well, we should expect nothing short of, I mean, you know how Santana does the things, but information from the auditorium is going to be very, very economical. What has to come out to the public domain will be solely decided at the auditorium. So, for us, as to whether there's going to be any a conclusion as far as the development in Boko is concerned, is something that I cannot vouch for, because even what has to drop in the public domain is something that is going to be processed. I mean, anything that will injure the peace talk is something that will not have a place as far as today's meeting is concerned.
And Evans, before you go, is the Asantehene doing this with any other prominent persons?
Not that we know of. I mean, the seating arrangement, from what I'm privy to, is going to be 4 seats have actually been mounted at the days, and I see the middle being Asantehene. The other person that I'm not privy to But from the way the arrangement has been made, it looks like face to face, the feuding parties are going to meet each other with something in the middle.
Thank you so much, William Evans Inkum. He's our Northern Bureau Chief, bringing us the latest on that mediation toss about to start. The Menchia Palace, at the behest of the Asantehene Otumfuo Osei-Tutu II, we'll be bringing you the latest as and when we do have it. But let's get a quick reaction from David Agbe. He's the Executive Director of the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon.
I mean, mindset is everything. Sometimes people say, what kind of, a frame of mind should the parties going into these talks have?
I think that at this moment is a tense moment for the parties involved in the Boku conflict. And I must say that it's good that Otumfuo has extended an invitation to them for them to dialogue over the protracted conflict between the Kusasis and the Mamprosis. It has been a terrible situation for the two tribes in the northern part of the country. And so for them to even accept the invitation from the Otumfuo suggests to some of us who have been speaking to both the Kusasis and the Mamprosis that it is about time that peace needs to prevail in the northern part of the country, especially between the Mamprosis and the Kusasis. Both of the parties have a certain genuine concern when you speak with them. And history speaks volume. And so at this point in time, some of us wouldn't like to go deep into the conflict matter, only to appeal to both parties who are, dominant in all parts of the country, that at this point in time that Otumfuo has extended an invitation to them, we should not speak so much about this conflict, but only to respect the fact that the will of the two tribes has to prevail at this point in time. And they need to respect the authority of the chieftaincy institution, which Otumfuo is an embodiment of that chieftaincy institution. And the whole matter borders on chieftaincy and who has to be the legitimate chief at Boko and its environment. And so at this point in time, we want to appeal to both parties that they should calm down for these dialogue to take place. And at the end of the day, we want peace to actually prevail in their various communities, because killings upon killings are going on there, and it is not good for the image of the two tribes.
Now, having the Otumfuo, a traditional ruler, intervening, would you say that this is a failure on the part of state institutions that are expected to effectively resolve such issues or age-old conflicts?
Any issues that borders on chieftaincy is quite a difficult thing to resolve, because each of them want to invoke historical antecedents. Why is it that this conflict has never been resolved from 1959 all the way to this period of time? Because of the history. Everybody is trying to invoke the history. Everybody is trying to, say that, in fact, a lot of things have gone under the bridge, and so therefore they don't want peace to actually prevail, because it borders on the fact that each party doesn't want to lose as far as the chieftaincy matter is concerned. And so we must say that, yes, security institutions and state institutions might have failed, but issues that borders on chieftaincy, it takes chieftaincy institutions to also work on the hearts and the minds of the people, such that they will actually respect, the chieftaincy laws and the chieftaincy institutions, and also try to dig deep into the historical antecedents and to ensure that they find an amicable solution to this protracted conflict which has engulfed Boko and its environs. And so some of us, we do know much about the history, we do know much about the conflict, and we don't want to, speak too much about this matter, but only to appeal to the conscience of the two major tribes in this conflict that at this point in time, all that we are appealing to them is that although it has been a protracted conflict, but we need to find a solution to this protracted conflict so that the killings will stop, between the two tribes. Some people who do not belong to these two ethnic groups have been a victim of some criminal activities taking place and all that. And so we want to appeal to their conscience that let everybody, support the peace mission and the peace call such that some relative peace could be maintained between the two tribes.
Indeed. We'll end it here. Thank you very much, David Agbe, Executive Director of the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security. Some 12 minutes past the hour of 12. When we come back, we'll tell you why the Electoral Commission says that it's been unable to collate and declare results in Ablekuma North constituency and what the police is saying to that.
Hello, Ghana. It's a new year and Bills Microcredit is here to support your dreams. If you're not working but want to start a business, don't let money stop you. With just your Ghana card, you can get a loan to turn your ideas into reality. Already running a business? Need more capital? Or are you a salary worker looking for extra funds? Bills offers fast and easy loans with no collateral, no deposit, and no SUSI savings required. Wherever you are, whatever you need, Bills makes it happen. Call Bills Microcredit today. Call 0596 920 833 or 0302 200 390 and get started. Bills is licensed and regulated by the Bank of Ghana. Bills, financing your needs. Terms and conditions apply.
Some 13 minutes past the hour of 12. Thank you so much for staying with us. This is still the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. Now, the Electoral Commission says it cannot declare results for Ablekuma North should the Ghana Police Service continue to fail to provide the necessary protection for the exercise. 4 months after the successful completion of the 2024 elections, Ablekuma North continues to remain in a stalemate with no declared winner. Despite both candidates declaring themselves winners, attempts by the EC on 9 separate occasions to collate and declare results have been marred by confusion and threats to its officials. This afternoon, the Commission says that members cannot proceed without an assurance from the police to provide adequate protection. According to our sources at the Commission, officials are still awaiting the police assurance of protection to enable the returning officer for Ablekuma North look at the results and make a final determination. But the Ghana Police Service has refuted the claims, insisting that officials stand ready to provide the needed security to allow the process to conclude. A source within the police service had this to tell us, as in the news team, and I quote, "I have checked with the EC. This doesn't seem to be accurate. All the same, we are working with the Electoral Commission and we are always ready to provide the needed security," the source added. Meanwhile, the governing NDC says a rerun of the election result should help bring finality to the matter. Dr. Tanko Rashid Computer, Deputy Director of Elections and IT, spoke to 3FM earlier.
The Electoral Commission says ready to declare Ablekuma North, but they want police protection. Is that the position of the NDC and all of the coalition that's happened? Is that how you see it as well?
What the Electoral Commission is trying to do is an illegality. The NDC will not accept such illegality. We have issues with 62 polling stations. We talked about it at IPAC. We all agree we don't have the pink sheets. The pink sheets are the primary source of getting the results. We don't have, EC don't have. EC was supposed to have in custody the original pink sheets, say they don't have it. Then our opponents will now come and say they have scanned copies. Where did they get the scanned copies from? And we told them that we will not agree for the use of scanned copies. Then whilst we were in court, they surreptitiously met our opponent and decided to use their scanned copies to add up the figures. Who will accept this? We said to the extent even their own presiding officers came and denied those scanned copies and said they were cooked ones. They are not they are distinct. And you remember the returning officer of Ablekumanov came up boldly and said he was not going to participate in this process again because they were forcing him to do an illegal thing. It was on live cameras. So on what basis would the Electoral Commission will continue to push an agenda which is not in the interest of anybody, but in the interest of the MPP? Why are they trying to force the MPP as the winners of that constituency? We won't accept. That's why we say we won't agree. Because we are not going to accept any scanned copies to be used as the basis to declare the results. That is our problem.
The EC says both parties know the truth, and that the longer this drags, it sets a bad precedent going forward for future elections. Why is it that there's been a difficulty to come to an agreement as to how we should proceed and for finality to come to Ablekumanov? Because they don't have a member of parliament as we speak.
It's a simple and short matter. It's simple. We don't have the 62 polling stations, pink sheets. They are supposed to have the original pink sheet. They don't have it. Why would they want to rely on our opponent's scanned copies? They say scanned copies, not even the pink sheet. They say scanned copies. Why would they lie? I can design this in a pink sheet on my laptop and say it's a scanned copy. Is that what we want to do? Why wouldn't they allow us to go and have a rerun of those polling stations?
But the rerun is supposed to be at the behest of the returning officer, a returning officer who says he's no longer interested in the process. And so where lies the way forward?
That is simple. That's what I'm saying, because the returning officer haven't realized that his senior officers were forcing him to use the scanned copies of the MPP to declare them. And he realized the illegality therein. He said, no, I can't do that kind of job. That stalled the whole process because they were forcing him to do an illegal thing. And we are saying that as a party, NDC, we will not condone, we will not support that kind of illegality. And Ablekumanov, if they wanted to resolve it, they should let us go and do a simple rerun of the 62 polling stations. Simple and short. Organizing election for the 62 polling stations is a big deal. It's not a big deal. They forced us to go and do by-election as enough just because of their parochial interest. We all went there and did the elections. They did the same thing for Ejisu. When even it was very close to elections. We are saying that 62 polling stations should not be a difficulty for them. Let us go organize election for the 62 polling stations. Whoever wins, we add up to that place. And we know the winner of that constituency. But to hold on and say you are looking for security, you are looking for it to come and declare an illegality, we won't accept it. The NDC will not be part of that kind of illegality. And we'll make sure that we'll prevent it. Nobody should dare think that he's going to declare Ablekumanov on the blind side of the NDC. We won't accept it.
And you had there Dr. Tanko Rashid, a computer. He's Deputy Director of Elections and IT, speaking earlier to Mawina Agbeta for Sri FM 92.7. Now, President John Mahama a while ago launched the Ghana Medical Trust Fund, a flagship healthcare initiative aimed at reducing the cost of treating chronic illnesses, otherwise known as Mahama Cares. The fund seeks to provide financial support to individuals suffering from chronic health conditions, including kidney and liver diseases, high blood pressure and cardiac ailment. We'll be going to Sarah Apenko very shortly, but let's hear what President John Mahama said a while ago when he launched the initiative.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we're launching more than just an initiative. We're launching hope. Hope for thousands of Ghanaians living with chronic diseases. Hope for families battling the overwhelming costs of care. hope for a future where the quality of life is not determined by one's ability to pay for essential treatment necessary. The Ghana Medical Trust Fund will support specialist-level treatment for a range of chronic diseases, including cancers, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, chronic kidney failure, stroke, and other complications. It will also progressively expand to cover convalescent care, palliative services, and home-based support. Support from the fund will be based on formal applications, carefully vetted, and will focus on costs not currently covered under the NHIS. The fund will operate as an independent statutory trust, governed by a board of trustees and supported by a dedicated administrative secretariat, third-party administrators, and patient navigators to ensure transparency, efficiency, and a patient-centered service ethic. Initial projections suggest the fund will require approximately 3 billion Ghana cedis annually over the first 3 years. And as was said, the main source of finance is going to come from the NHIL, the uncapped portion of the NHIL. It will also include direct budgetary support from government, voluntary contributions from corporate institutions and individuals, grants, donations, and will also be able to invest in order to raise income, investment income.
And you had that President John Mahama launching the Mahama Cares Initiative. Shortly, we'll be going to Sarah Pinko to bring us the latest from there. What more she can tell us beyond what we just heard the President say. But we stay on health a bit longer because Chairman of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health, Dr. Mark Nawani, has noted with concern the challenging state of some health facilities in the country. Speaking to the media on the sidelines of the first regional meeting of the Coalition of Parliamentarians to End Malaria in Africa, he said that although some of the challenges require national solution, others could be handled by the hospital management with internally generated funds. He also spoke about the challenges with inadequate human resources at health facilities following the tour of some facilities earlier.
Our hospitals have got challenges, and some of the challenges require national solution. In other words, there must be a response from the Ministry of Health, from the Ministry of Finance, etc. But there are also some issues that they can solve it at the local level. And when we did our rounds, we realized that, for example, staffing, there was an inadequate staffing in all the hospitals. All of them were crying for staffing. And we've got a lot of graduates sitting down, be them nurses, doctors, paramedical staff, allied science professionals, but they can't get what we call the financial clearance. And I'm advocating that there should be some form of either differential financial clearance or some discriminatory way of giving the financial clearance. Say that if, for example, you agree to go to war for 3 to 5 years, then you get your financial clearance. Because people get the financial clearance and they all remain in Accra here. Apart from that, of course, they have these infrastructural problems, the equipment. Some of them have broken down, and they are not repairing the broken down equipment. And they are appealing to the national government to come and help them repair the equipment. And I'm saying that, but if you are using the equipment and you are getting money out of it, why don't you escrow some amount or fence wall some amount of it? Say that when the equipment breaks down, you use the money to repair. And so we should also be looking at the IGF of these hospitals.
And it had the chairman of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health, Dr. Mark Nawane. Now, principals of the 47 colleges of education are calling for increase in training allowance for the current 400 cedis a month, as in from the current 400 cedis a month to 1,000 cedis a month. President of the principal colleges, Professor Atintonu, says the increase will assist the colleges to improve on feeding for the students.
The payment of teacher training allowances as source of support for teacher training remains very relevant, as most of the students would have found it difficult to support themselves in the college. However, the monthly allowance of 400 cedis for over 10 years now is very insignificant and hardly support the students. For instance, the current feeding rate of 8 cedis per student per day for 3 square meals is woefully inadequate and puts a huge burden on the principal. The total feeding cost per student per month is 240 cedis, which is taken out of the trainee allowance of 400 cedis, leaving an amount of 160 cedis for the trainees. College management struggles to feed the students with accumulated debts in each of the colleges that we have here. We have had challenges with suppliers, even trying to attack principals, myself not left out, because I haven't paid the supplier. They came with a gun to my office. Very ridiculous. The proposal we have in this direction is that, one, if the allowances must be maintained, then it must be increased to at least 1,000 cedis per month per student. 2, the amount for feeding should be increased to 30 cedis per student per day to enable the principal to feed the students properly. 3, the entire allowances could be given to the students for them to feed themselves and free the principal from the burden of feeding them. If this option is considered, then there is a need for government to support college management to construct kitchenettes for students to prepare their own meals, as the current infrastructure do not support cooking.
Well, the Education Minister, Haruna Idrisu, assured the principals that the government will consider their demand on the training allowance.
And then on your conditions of service, we will engage further the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. You know, I used to be Minister for Labor, and maybe I should share this joke with you, and then I'll be concluding on that. I have always appreciated matters of privilege, facilities, remuneration, compensation, because of its motivational value, and for Ghana, its job security value. So, Prophet Intono, I should thank you. One of my warm baptism of fire was for you people to welcome me with a strike. So I'm praying for industrial harmony and industrial peace on our campuses. We should openly dialogue on these matters in order that we can seek to improve your conditions of service. And that's why I said I want to share this. This is a real story, but I'd like to share the joke with you.
The minister also directed Get Fund to increase its allocation to the Student Loan Trust Fund from 60 million cedis to 150 million cedis.
Government is considering expanding the student loan scheme to students even in private universities. So for this year, your remit would be to look at what is obvious and natural within your mandate, but it's a desire of the president to expand it to other Ghanaians who equally are struggling, maybe because of their inability to get admission into a public university. They've had to go into a private university. They are still Ghanaians, and this is a loan repayable by the student. Understandably, I'm told that happily my colleague, the Honorable Dandawa, who represents the Ghana Education Trust Fund. The Student Loan Trust Fund needs the support of the Get Fund. I understand that you have allocated 60 million this year. That's woefully inadequate woefully inadequate. And if we anticipate expanding it to cover other students in other institutions, especially the private universities, I will have no hesitation that into your 2026 formula, we double this amount to 150 million.
You have the Education Minister Haruna Idrisu. That's it for the Nature on True FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you so much for joining us today. Log on to streetnews.com for more news. Coming up next is Business Daily with Bismarck Awusa. Don't go away.
The NPP's ongoing thank you tour appears to have hit a snag following recent comments made by 2024 flag bearer. While the party hopes to use it
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, Bank of Ghana revises inflation target sharply downward to 12% for 2025 as International Monetary Fund backs further monetary tightening. Also, Ghana Association of Banks calls on government to curb forex market speculation to sustain steady stability and boost public confidence. We'll hear from Chief Executive John Ewua.
The managers of the economy should at all times fight that cancer. That cancer is called speculation.
Plus, economist urges government to return to international capital markets, saying Ghana can rely on natural resources for funding. I am Bismarck Awusa. These stories and others lined up for you. Please stay. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. The Bank of Ghana has significantly revised its inflation target for 2025 to 12%, down from an earlier projection of 16%, as the central bank intensifies efforts to curb inflation through tighter monetary policy. The following 3 Business News Desk report has the details.
The Bank of Ghana has set a new lower inflation target of 12% for 2025, marking a sharp revision from the earlier projection of 16%. Governor Dr. Johnson Esiama revealed the revised figure on the sidelines of the IMF and World Bank spring meetings, attributing it to new monetary measures and complementary fiscal actions by government. Inflation slowed for a third straight month in March, dropping to 22.4%. This, according to analysts, has raised hopes that inflation could continue to ease in the coming months. At its last policy meeting, the Monetary Policy Committee raised the policy rate by 100 basis points to 28%. Some analysts now expect another rate hike hike in May to help meet the tighter inflation goal. The IMF has welcomed this stance, stating that continued monetary tightening and fiscal consolidation are key to reducing inflation further. While the IMF projects Ghana will close 2025 with inflation around 17.5%, the government's budget target remains even lower at 11.9%. However, some economists, including Professor Peter Quartey, warn that the target may be overly ambitious given prevailing economic challenges.
And that was a 3 Business News Desk report on the Bank of Ghana revising inflation target sharply downward to 12% for 2025 as IMF backs further monetary tightening. Still on inflation, financial sector players are urging the government to adopt more practical and effective measures to tackle inflation and maintain macroeconomic stability. Traditionally, the government has relied on raising the monetary policy rate to control price increases. However, speaking at the 2025 Money Summit organized by the Business and Financial Times, Deputy Managing Director of Fidelity Bank, Kwabena Boateng, said the private sector should be encouraged to invest in long-term financial instruments. He argued that such an approach would help absorb excess liquidity and support sustainable economic growth.
Traditionally, when we think about tackling inflation, especially its transmission through exchange rate volatility, the immediate policy response is often to raise interest rates. While this remains a valuable tool, it's important to explore more nuisance and sustainable approaches, particularly for economies like Ghana. Consider this. Rather than relying solely on interest rate hikes to sustain credit growth, what if we actively encourage small and medium-scale enterprises, as SMEs, and larger corporates to raise medium to long-term financing through the capital market, thus bonds, equity, and other instruments. This will redirect existing domestic capital towards productive economic activities, reducing pressure on the banking system as a primary source of funding. This approach carries strategic advantages, facilitating broader access to capital markets that can promote sustainable economic growth without necessarily stroking the inflationary pressures that often accompany rapid credit expansion.
And that was Deputy Managing Director of Fidelity Bank, Kwabena Boateng. Moving on, the Ghana Association of Banks is urging government to address speculation in the foreign exchange markets to help sustain the cedi's recent stability against major trading currencies. The local currency has traded within the 15 cedis to the dollar range for much of the year, a development industry players have welcomed, noting it brings a degree of predictability for businesses. Speaking on Business Focus on TV3, Chief Executive of the association, John Ewua, said boosting public confidence in the cedi is critical, adding that more must be done to discourage the growing trend of holding dollars as an investment alternative.
What kind of funds are these speculators holding? Are they short-term funds? Are they medium-term or long-term funds? If they are not funds that they can hold for long, and they speculated by buying dollars, and all of a sudden they are seeing that the dollar is holding its own, the cedi is holding its own, or is even appreciating against the dollar, what do? They offload. And once they come on the market to offload, because they don't have use for the currency, they only bought it for temporary gains. And the moment they come back to the market to say, hey, we are offloading because we are almost getting close to making losses on the currency that we purchased, then you find that we have this aggressive decline as well. What we have to avoid is bringing the speculators back into the market. The moment you get paid and you are thinking of buying dollar, there's a problem. It means your strength, your confidence in the cedi is weakened, or your confidence in the currency environment or the economy, inflation is weakened, or you believe that the dollar is a better store of value than your own base currency, which is your Ghana cedi. So the managers of the economy should at all times fight that cancer. That cancer is called speculation.
And that was Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Banks, John Ewua. Still on local currency stability, and the Ghana Union of Traders Associations, GUTA, has urged the Bank of Ghana to sustain its interventions to ensure lasting currency stability, stressing that a predictable exchange rate environment is crucial for business planning and market confidence. The union says stability in the exchange rate is essential to protect capital, control pricing, and plan effectively for imports and sales. Clement Boateng is Vice President of GUTA.
If we want to talk about the stability of the cedi within the same period last year. Last year, by the first quarter of 2024, the cedi has depreciated by about 6.2%. But this same period in 2025, the cedi has rather appreciated by 2.76%. And I think it's a welcome news for the business community. So we want to encourage the Bank of Ghana to continue to make sure that the prudent measures that they have put in place to make the cedi stable will be continued for the benefit of the business community and for the benefit of the entire economy of Ghana.
Clement Boateng is Vice President of the Ghana Union of Traders Associations, GUTA. Before we go, economist Dr. Adu Sarkodie says Ghana might not need to borrow any longer from the international capital market, considering the fact that the country has survived over the last couple of years since it was cut out. He argues that if the country leverages fully on its natural resources, it would be able to raise all the critical funds for key expenditures.
We haven't been to the Eurobond market since January 2022, and still we are experiencing this stability. It shows that we can really manage our economy without going to borrow that high. So we should manage our expectations about going back to the Eurobond market. If we can really leverage the gold, we can leverage other natural resources that we have, we should be able to do it to stabilize our currency. Apart from gold, we also have other natural resources. We have the oil, we have manganese, we have bauxite. We should be able to leverage that. We have seen that consistently from 2017 coming down. With the exception of the year 2022, Ghana has recorded positive trade balance. That means that we've always exported more than we've imported. But the question is the ownership. So going forward, as a country, we should try and own a greater part of our natural resources so that our cedi can continue to stabilize, which is good. So I think it's a good thing, Michael. It's a good thing for our economy. So we should try and continue with the efforts that the government is putting in.
And that was economist Dr. Adu Sarkodie ending Business Daily with me, Bismarck Ausa. For more business stories, please check out our website 3news.com. Thanks for your company. Urban Blend is next with Black Rasta Tuesday.